Hello, beautiful. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Tracy, and today I really wanted to sit down and discuss some books with you. I have been loving audiobooks lately, which is really weird for me because I've always been a person who preferred to have a physical book in my hand. But since we have been working from home, I have just discovered audiobooks in a way that I never really enjoyed them before. And so I am listening to audiobooks as part of my daily routine. It makes the house a lot less quiet as I kind of go through my days and weeks. And I am loving audiobooks so much. So this month I actually listened to 8 books, but I read one physical book. And I wanted to talk to you about these books in genre versus how I read them. I just felt like when I was looking at this list, I was like, that's much easier to do. So, the month of June was hard for me physically. I've mentioned to you guys before that I'm having some health issues right now. So, June was extremely difficult with what I have going on, which definitely played a part in how I was feeling emotionally and mentally. Um, so, the first genre I want to talk to you about is spirituality or New Age. I know a lot of Christians really steer away from this topic. I do consider myself Christian, however, I do find a lot of what's the word I'm trying to say? I do find a sense of joy and happiness and love and kindness in these kind of. I feel much more calm when I read these kinds of books, so I do enjoy them. I think with these kind of books, you have to just take what resonates with you and just leave the rest. And so I got that from my friend Malika. But anyway, this New Age genre, the first book I listened to was The Power of Now. I used to own the book The Power of Now. I was looking forward for the book for this video. So I say used to own it because I know for a fact I own it because I only learned about The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle from my brother Adrian, who gave me a copy of the book so many years ago, probably over 10 years ago. He gave me a copy of that book and he said it was his favorite. And I gave him a copy of my favorite book as well. But I remember the first time I read The Power of Now, I knew something different was happening to me, but I didn't take everything from it that the book had to offer. And then when I read it again, I got a little bit more pieces out of it. But because of the time that I had in the month of June, I was drawn to it again, but this time in audiobook form. And it's read by the author, and he is not a monk, but he has a very soothing, calm, relaxed, chill voice, and it was exactly what I needed at the time. For me, The Power of Now is about one of my favorite parts about this book is he says to you, he says, sit there and be still for a moment and try to think of your next thought before you even have it. And I remember the first time I read it, and I was like thinking things like I want to go get something to eat, or I need to clean up the bathroom or stuff like that. But those are really not thoughts, those are just to-do lists. But if you sit and try to think of a thought before you actually have it, is completely impossible to do. We're usually thinking about the past, or we are creating some anxiety in the future. And that's truly what I was doing with the health issues that I'm going through. I was depressed about having this in the past and having it again, and anxious about what the future would hold and how I would be helped or how I would be healed. And it was sucking the life out of me, feeling that way. And so revisiting this book allowed me to sit and really think about what I truly have control over. And that is exactly what's in front of me. I can't control the past because that's already happened. I can't control the future because truly you don't know what the future is going to be. This may miraculously heal itself, or I may have to have surgery. I honestly don't know. So, sitting there and listening to him and listening to his voice was so calming and so peaceful for me. So, I feel like this book is good for anyone who's really going through any anxiety, or if they're also going through depression. There is so much power in just being where you are right now and focusing only on that. It just released so much negativity from me. And honestly, when I finished listening to this book, I felt so much better. And it gave me things that I absolutely did not receive the first few times that I read it. And I posted about this book in a reading group that I belong to on Facebook. It's not a book club. I don't do good with book clubs. This is a reading group that we just read whatever we want and we post just little book reports about it, basically. And I posted that I had read this book, and I was so happy to see so many other women had read it and how it had kind of transformed them and how it truly helped them with their depression and their anxiety. I don't think that you shouldn't go to a doctor. If you've watched my channel before, you know I see a therapist regularly. I even talked to her about this book after I read it. I don't think this is a cure-all by any means, but there was just so much peace and calm that came with this book, so it may be something that you can add to your routine as well. So the next kind of new agey or spirituality book I listened to was The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. So I remember the very first time I saw the documentary The Secret. I'd seen it before I actually read the book or even knew it was a book. I thought it was just a documentary only. I remember being given a copy of the documentary. You know how we bootleg. You know how we do. A bootleg copy of The Secret that only probably 2 years ago completely stopped working for me. But I have listened to and watched The Secret over and 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 over again. The Secret is about the law of attraction. There are certain universal laws. There is the law of gravity, and there is the law of attraction, which simply states what you think about is what you bring about. And it's interesting. It feels very taxing and very cumbersome and very, it feels disheartening sometimes. So you think about, holy crap, I brought about all this debt. I brought about this illness just by my thoughts. But what The Secret allowed me to do, in addition to the power of now, both of these are rereads, obviously, but what it allowed me to do is take where I am now and to focus on the good things and realize that I can change the future if I focus on the positive things that I have now, if I'm grateful for the things that I have now. You guys know, if you've watched, I think I have one morning routine on my channel where I talked about scripting, where I will kind of just script out what I want my life to look like. And even where I am now in Nashville, sitting on a pink couch, these are things that I definitely manifested for myself. Being this close to financial freedom are things that I manifested for myself. Knowing that I have this illness but I can correct it is something that I'm manifesting for myself. The relationship that I'm going to be in is something that I'm manifesting for myself as well. So, like I said at the beginning, it feels kind of cumbersome. It feels overwhelming. It feels like you've just done so much shit work. But if you just kind of reframe your thought process and truly believe in better, showing gratitude for where you are and changing how you do things on a daily basis to live a better life, the law of attraction is such a beautiful thing. Even when it's scary, even when it's scary sometimes, it's still such a beautiful thing. So this is one of the books that I really enjoy and that I will revisit often. The next book I want to discuss is a book that I own. This book is titled The Four Agreements, and it is by Don Miguel Ruiz. And I do remember the first time I read this book as well. This is another reread. This book lives here on my living room table. It lives on my coffee table, and it's something I try to read twice a year. I don't always make it, but just by me seeing it all the time helps process and change the way I think about things. So, when you are born, your name is chosen for you. Your parents are obviously chosen for you. Your religion is chosen for you. So many of the things are chosen for you. Then you get to a point in your life where people will call it buck the system, or you become defiant, or you become hard-headed just because you begin to disagree with all of these things that have been decided for you. And I remember reading this book for the first time was right around the time I was beginning to no longer want to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses. And I was struggling. And this book came into my world, and I remember reading this book in a day. I remember exactly where I was when I read this book for the first time, and it changed my perception of everything that I was going through. And it made somehow life simpler for me, because I had all of these things that I thought that I had to do or had to be, and it really wasn't about that. I was a grown woman, so I had the ability to kind of live the life that I wanted. So the first agreement is be impeccable with your word. The second agreement is don't take anything personally. The third agreement, which is so huge, especially for me, is don't make any assumptions. The fourth agreement is always do your best. Of course, the book goes into deeper into what these four agreements truly mean. Don't make any assumptions. It's interesting is whenever I'm talking to someone about this book, I'm like, there are only four agreements, blah, 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 blah. And I can never remember don't make any assumptions, because that's the one that I have the hardest time with. So every time I read this book over again, whether I read it once a year or twice a year, I always find new ways to really hear and process the words that are being said in this book. This is one of my favorite books. It's very new agey. It's very spiritual based. But once again, it's a book that just constantly brings me comfort, and I absolutely love it. So the next genre I want to get into is kind of like finance and business, kind of, but not really. The first book I want to talk about is The Power of Habit. It's by Charles Duhigg, I think is how it's pronounced. And so this book is really about the power. I was thinking the power of habit as far as like, you should make your bed every morning. These are just like some habitual things that we should do. I was thinking that it was going to give me a new way of thinking about making habits, but it was more on the business side of things. This book was really interesting because I love kind of statistics and I love kind of research type of books. And this book was definitely filled with that. And it was talking about how businesses or companies use people's habits to kind of grow themselves, and how you have habits that you really kind of don't even know that you have. One particular story in this book that I found crazy interesting, which in my opinion, if you're interested in this type of book at all, is to really read this book, is about Target. Yes, the store Target. You know, the dollar section you try to run past, and that Target. Target decided that they want to know when women were pregnant before they even knew that they were pregnant, because they wanted to know how to upsell them on things. So in one of the local stores, a father came in with his he came in with a sales ad for his 15-year-old daughter, and it was about baby clothes, baby food, all this baby stuff. And he was livid because he felt like Target was trying to encourage his daughter to get pregnant. But based on her habits, Target knew that that 15-year-old girl was pregnant before her father even knew that she was pregnant. Yeah, she was pregnant, and Target knew it. Listen, I listened to that part over and over again, and I guess because the whole situation kind of blew my mind. I am not sure how they did it. I'm not sure how they did it. I don't know what this young lady did to make Target know that she wasn't. Like, did she buy her pregnancy test there? And they just kept, but a pregnancy test could be negative. Listen, this book has so many stories like that in it. There was a gentleman who had something going on with his brain, and they took a piece of something out of his brain that left him without the ability to remember anything. But he had a habit of doing certain things. So even without his memory, he could do those things every single day. Every single morning, he would wake up and make himself bacon and eggs. Even though he really couldn't tell you how to make bacon and eggs, he got up every single morning and did it. And then he would take a nap, and 2 hours later, he would wake up and do the exact same thing. It reminded me of the book 50 First Dates with Drew Barrymore and Adam Sandler, how she didn't remember anything from the day before. But with this gentleman, he would do things out of habit. He could not tell you his address. He could not tell you where he lived. But one of the things the doctor suggested that his wife do is that she keeps everything as consistent as possible. So she would take him on a walk every single day. And she had to watch him all the time because he didn't remember where he lived or anything like that. And so she took him on a walk every day. And then one day, she couldn't take him, but it was at the time for them to go. And he left the house, and she panicked and freaked out, and she was going to the neighbor's house trying to get everybody to help her. And he ended up coming back home, not because he knew his way home, but because of the habit of walking the same way every single day with her trying to be consistent with him. He remembered how to get home. But one day there was construction or if someone cut a tree down or if someone painted a house, he would be screwed. But he had a habit of just walking the same way. You guys, this book was, when I first started listening to it, I was about to DNF it, but the story about the gentleman with the brain issue was the first. And I do love sciencey things. I do love statistical things. So I continued to listen to this book all the way to the end. I didn't get any real input for my personal life in this book, but I really, really did find it interesting. The next book I listened to was another reread, and this was The Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. If you've ever seen any of my other videos, you know that I am on a financial freedom journey. And several years ago, I was introduced to Dave Ramsey by a coworker, and I ended up reading the book, going to the library, checking the book out, read it, and it was so interesting. It was the first time money made sense to me. So I went to Dave Ramsey Studios and I got a chance to meet him. And then in September of 2017, I decided that I would start Financial Peace University. So it's really interesting to me because I don't remember when I went vegan. People was like, how long you been vegan? I'm like 5, 6, 7, 8 years, I don't know. But I know exactly when I went to Financial Peace University because it is something that I knew I always wanted to do. I always wanted to understand money better. I didn't want it to control me when I had it, and I didn't want it to control me when I didn't have it. And I wanted to understand how to budget better and do all those things for myself better. And I absolutely have done that. I've made some amazing changes in my life as far as my finance goals. I am so proud of all the work that I've done in that area. And so I decided to listen to Total Money Makeover again this month because I was already going back over so many other books that I already read that was bringing me so much peace because, like, real talk, this year has been so I needed just a little bit more comfort, a little bit more calm, a little bit more peace, and a little bit more of you're on the right direction. And so I re-listened to the Total Money Makeover, and it really got me back on track, got me refocused because lately I've just been trying to survive. So it ain't been no budget. I mean, I've done a budget, but I ain't look at it once I did it, and I didn't remember what I wrote down, and I didn't care. I was just literally surviving. It was just trying to make it through the day every day in this 2020 year that we're all up in. So I haven't been paying much attention, but I am back on track now. And July was much better than the last few months because it just brought some things back to me, and it helped me reaffirm my goals. It actually helped me make goals for the rest of the year. I don't know what genre to put this next book in. Okay. The next book I listened to was The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks by Rebecca Skloot. This book, I could make a video on this entire book by itself. I heard of Henrietta Lacks the first time when I saw the preview for the movie that Oprah Winfrey was starring in. I read a synopsis of what the book or what the movie was about on Google, and I didn't read anymore. I didn't look up anymore. What I read stuck with me in a way that I can only describe to you by saying I have a plant named Henrietta. It was the first plant that I ever had in my home that I didn't kill. I took the plant out of my boss's office. There was just a twig, and it's now thriving and flourishing, and I've cut it back a couple of times. I was actually happy in my ignorance. I was blissful in my ignorance of the truth of what was really happening with Henrietta and her family, because just that little synopsis on Google was more than enough for me. My initial thoughts going into this book is that it was going to be heavily steeped in racism, and that was too painful for me to bear, honestly. I didn't want it to, it was just too painful. I've known about different types of research, medical research that's done on different groups of people. I know what happened in concentration camps, Jewish concentration camps in Germany. I know what happened to the black men in Tuskegee. And these are just two of several other stories. So I had to gather myself to be able to listen to this book. I had no idea the layers and the depth that the author would go to in this book. I thought it would be simply about how it came about. They harvested her cells, and how her cells, even today as we speak, are still living on and still multiplying. I really thought that was going to be the entire book, but oh my goodness. Just be aware that if you read this book, there are so many triggers in this book. There is racism, there is poverty, there is classism, there is abuse, sex abuse, physical abuse, there is murder, there is so much poverty, there's mental health issues, there's incest. in this book. This book, I after I read this book, I had to immediately go on YouTube and find an interview with the author, and I wanted to know exactly what someone else asked her. They were like, "Did you know that this was going to be all of this, or did you just plan just to talk about the sales, or when like how did you end up writing the book the way that you did?" And she said it just all kind of happened. It all just kind of happened after she met Deborah, which is Henrietta's daughter. Henrietta had 2 daughters and 3 sons. um she was married, and she found a tumor herself, on her body, and she went to the doctor, and she was telling them that something wasn't right. She was misdiagnosed. It's possible that she could have lived on, with proper care, but the care that they gave her made her die. I am struggling with figuring figuring out if that was intentional or not. Um, when they did the biopsy, they took some good cells and some bad cells from her, and they sent them to the lab like they always did with all patients. And they found out that her cancer cells kept generating whatever you kind of put them with. They kept generating, and no other human cell had ever done that before. Because of Henrietta's cancerous cells that kept generating and generating, they were sold and they were bought, and there were factories built for these HeLa cells, and her HeLa cells helped develop the vaccine for polio. It also helped develop it in blood pressure medicine and even some other cancers. So much that you partake of now in the healthcare industry came as a result of HeLa cells. It's crazy that even though, if I remember correctly, she passed in 1951, she died in 1951, those cancer cells from her body are still, in 2020, are still generating, and science and doctors are still making discoveries to help you and I today based on these cells. And her family was in complete, utter, total poverty. They could not even afford to go to the doctor themselves. This book goes into great detail. It goes into great detail about her husband and her children and her grandchildren and how they were living. This, I believe, is one of the most important books that if you've not read or you're not interested in anything else that I talk about on this video today, I feel it is so important for everyone, no matter what their background is, whether they like science or not, whether they believe racism is real or not, any of those things. This is such an important book to read. Just when I knew that I was going to do a book review, I was trying to figure out how I would talk about this book, and I couldn't figure it out. So I just wrote a list of words down. And when I got to the end of the list, I just wrote, "Thank you." I just felt so much gratitude for Henrietta herself, for science, for her family, the way they decided just to go about things. It's just a book that I feel that you need to read just to show gratitude, because we so often neglect or don't even think about how life is done and what is being done in our lives. And this is just such an important book of history. So the next genre is novels, fictional novels. And they are obviously broken down in several genres within that title. But I'm not going to do all that. This is not a professional booktube video. The first novel that I listened to was The President is Missing by Bill Clinton and James Patterson. First of all, the title was just intriguing. And that Bill Clinton wrote with James Patterson, who's known mostly for his thrillers, was also interesting to me. So this book is about, first of all, the president, which now I can't remember the president's name, excuse me, in the book, but you can definitely Google it. Is read by Randy Quaid. It was just such a beautiful voice to listen to for 3 days. It took me about 3 days to listen to this book. And what's happening is the president receives information from his daughter. A terrorist cell has gotten in contact with his daughter. They didn't harm her or anything. They just wanted her to give her father a message that there is a cyber virus that is planned for a certain day and a certain time, and it is going to make America the largest third world country because it's going to wipe out everything. So the president goes on a mission by himself. He leaves the White House without Secret Service to try to meet with this terrorist cell because he doesn't want that to happen to the United States, obviously. But there is a female assassin that shows up. And can I just say, that just really made me excited. The fact that there was an assassin in this book and it was female, that just really, really made me so excited. So I was talking to my friend Jonda about it. I was like, there's a female assassin in this book. And she was like, of course Bill Clinton will put a female assassin in the book. This book, I guess you would sum it up as a political thriller, but it felt more thriller than political until the last chapter. And honestly, the last chapter really turned me completely, totally off. The book had been summed up so beautifully, and then the last chapter was just like this political speech that just felt more like grandstanding than anything. You see, I'm just so irritated my earring fell out. But the last chapter, I was like, we could have done without all of that. Everything has summed up. We knew why everybody was where they were and who did what. We found out who the mole was. So why we had to do all that at the end? That's just how I felt about this book. But I really did enjoy this book. And I posted it in the reading group that I was telling you about. And then someone said, there's also another one called The First Lady. So that's TBR. Next book I listened to was The Care and Feeding of Ravenously Hungry Girls by Anissa Gray. This book was really good. I had been seeing the cover to this book all over the place. So a lot of times, I'll be honest, I just pick books by the cover. I don't care who the author is. I don't care kind of the genre. As you can tell, I listen to everything. But I really love the cover of this book, and I knew it was, I believe it's the debut work of this author. I'll pop on the screen the correct answer for that, but I believe this is her debut novel. And this book is about 3 sisters and a brother. And it talks about their lives individually. It goes back and forth kind of with how they grew up to kind of how they are now and why they are where they are. And one of the sisters and her husband own this restaurant that everyone in the town goes to. The town is going through a hard time. And the sister and her husband are like pillars in the community. And one day, the police come to arrest them, and the police are even confused. The policeman said, this can't be right, but I have a warrant for your arrest. this can't be right. So, but I'm just gonna take you in because I have it, and then you guys can explain it all once you get there. And they ended up being convicted and sentenced, and they're in jail. They have twin daughters of their own. So the twin daughter has to go to one of the aunts who lives in the same town that they are. But that particular aunt is responsible for her Asian mother-in-law, who is very old, and she has her own issues with her life and her relationship breaking up and being responsible for her mother-in-law. And then the other sister comes in to town to try to help out, but she has an eating disorder. So if that triggers you, please don't pick this book up. But if that doesn't, this is a really interesting book to read. And it kind of just goes through their whole life and everything and how they ended up where they are. This was just a good listen to. This wasn't anything earth shattering. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. It was just an interesting, good read. I wouldn't necessarily rate it in any way, but if you're looking for something that's interesting, that's like a family drama, I think this is good for that, because it took me far enough out of my own family life to want to listen to it. And I say that specifically because the next book I listened to was Queenie. Queenie is by Candace Carty Williams. I believe that's correct. Candace Carty Williams. First of all, how I found out about Queenie as a book at all is I follow an Instagram account that she does her nail art. She copies nail art. She copies book covers on her nails. So the title of this book she put on her nails, and I thought it was so interesting to see her nails and then see the title of the book and see the braids of the person. So obviously in my mind, this is a black woman. Her name is Queenie. This is something I may be interested in, and literally that's all I knew about this book. I knew nothing else about this book. So when I started listening to it and a British accent came through, I was like, huh, what? I didn't even know the author. I still don't know if she's British. I haven't done that much research on her, but it's written definitely from that point of view, and all of the different accents. You can tell some are posh, some are not, in this book. And so Queenie is 20 something, and I almost DNF'd this book. And I almost DNF'd it because it was too personal. It was too close to home. Too much of Queenie's life parallels my own verbatim. And the parts that didn't parallel my life paralleled my best friend's life verbatim. And it was just emotionally draining almost to read, because I was like, I don't want to read about my life. I kept listening to this book because I was hoping that she would go to therapy, which is something I've done in my own life. And once she finally did go to therapy, I was like, okay. Not necessarily that it made me feel better, even though these characters are fictional. It was just a matter of, it was just too close to home. So when I posted about this book in my reading group, I was just like, I can't rate this book, because rating this book feels like I'm judging myself. She happened to get therapy in her 20s. It took me to my 40s to do that. And it's just like, you know what I'm saying? It was just too real for me to enjoy. It was too real for me to enjoy. And I do feel like, though, I remember at one point listening to it, I was like, if some of my white girlfriends had read this book, they probably understand me a little bit better. Queenie is going through some stuff, y'all. Queenie got some stuff going on. She has a very strong, female group because she's Queenie. She calls her female friends corgis. It's like the Queen of England has all these corgis, so I thought that was super cute. She called them her corgis, and her corgis hold her down. She has one friend named Chiska. Chiska is literally cousin Paula. I promise you, Chiska rolled up one day and she started hitting dude that was talking to Queen. Like, she just rolled up with her purse and slugged him across his face. Then he was saying something, she said something, she hit him again with her purse. I was like, you have to have a Chiska cousin Paula in your group. If you don't, your group ain't complete. You need to get out there and meet someone who ain't afraid to be arrested. Okay? You need somebody not afraid for charges in your circle. If all your friends afraid of going to jail, then you need to just find you somebody else. I'm not even really joking. I am joking, but I'm not joking. You need someone that'll be a rider. Like, you need a rider in your group. I'm not the person. I'm not that person. I'm the hype woman of the group. You want to do something, you got a business, I'm going to hype you up. I'm going to be the first one posting on Instagram. I'm going to be the first one buying from you. I'm going to hype you up. But I'm not going to jail. But it's nice to have that person in your group, and then you need a sensible one in your group. My best friend Brandy is the sensible one in my group. But it's interesting because all of my friends are not friends, which is cool. And I have tons of friends. I have a whole Nashville group of friends, and I have a whole Memphis group of friends, so I love it. But anyway, Queenie was the last book. I actually started listening to Queenie on July 31st. I decided to add it into this video because I just didn't want to carry it to August. I don't want to talk about this next month, which is August now. So when I do my next video, I don't want to talk about Queenie. I just want that to be over and done with. So as you can tell, I am not a professional booktuber. I am someone who just likes to sit on their couch and to talk about books. If you are the same way, but you want a more professional type of video, I'm going to highly suggest that you check out Plots with a Twist. They're two friends. I believe they're friends. They could be related, but I'm not sure. I don't know anything about them personally, but they sit on the floor and they just read, they just talk about the books they read. And they did a really, really cool video the other day where they talked about black-owned books, books written by black authors, as well as some new products they have found for some black brands. So if you are looking for a more articulate, coherent, less personal, taking books a lot less personal, I highly suggest you check out Plots with a Twist. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. This is a video that I have truly enjoyed filming so much, so I really hope you enjoy watching it. Don't forget to please give me a thumbs up if you liked it. Leave a comment in the comment section about what you're reading, as well as don't forget to subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, beautiful.